Celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Here we are, episode 715 of the Wrestling is Real podcast, and we just finished watching Dynamite tonight, which included a title change. Well, we knew it was going to be some title change, but Jon Moxley now the sole owner of the AEW World title. Look, everybody's talking about the match with CM Punk. It only lasted 3 minutes, 9 seconds. And I'm one of those few people that didn't really make much of a difference if CM Punk was holding the belt and for the fact that the match was cut short as it was. And I know people think there was supposed to be some big, huge title match that was going to go on here. We got a clean finish, and we got a logical finish. That's the way I look at it. The fact that Jon Moxley now is the champion and CM Punk and Hangman Adam Page, you can let that feud go on without a title. That's not necessary. Or Page can go ahead and go after Moxley, whatever you want to do. But maybe they'll have something figured out where they want to do something with the world title by All Out. They could do that. They got time left. I just don't know what they're going to do. But they solidly decided that CM Punk, they were going to sell the injury, make it was re-aggravated, make it easy enough for that to go and can be brought into place. It sold, and that was it. And CM Punk taking a quick loss, a quick pinfall like that, that works fine with me for whatever it was worth. I mean, part of the thing is that CM Punk was going to have a title run anyway, and then it got cut short with the injury. But there's a lot of things for CM Punk left to do when it comes to helping the younger stars, which is what he was originally here for. But you gave him the title run. He has it. And the injury they continue to use as the crux why he couldn't defend the title, and now why he lost the title overall coming back too soon. So there's a story to be said right there which can turn him heel. That all works for me. And for everybody else to look at that out there, I mean, I see people that are complaining left and right about it. They're shocked by the finish. I'm not necessarily feeling that way. It's like what it is. I don't mind so much that they decided to go this route. It's totally fine with me. But people got pissed by it. And right now, people are already putting out polls. What do everybody think about the match? People are not happy about it. But you're never going to satisfy this crowd. Listen, I understand Punk and Moxley to get this match. You thought you were going to get a lot of time with it. And people are really just upset with the finishes on some of the matches tonight. You had tonight the finish to Will Ospreay and Aussie Open defeating Death Triangle. And for whatever reason, Aussie Open was a team that was deserved, that they felt that needed to move on in the trios tournament. And that's because of the Will Ospreay Kenny Omega deal, which is kind of like a Japan deal. That's what they want to go after that. Phoenix and Will Ospreay had a hell of a match within themselves, along with the rest of their crews. Notwithstanding Zack Sabre Jr., notwithstanding Pentagon Jr., okay? With all that. Or El Cero Miedo. And then we get to deal with Kip Sabian coming out, which I didn't realize. I really didn't pay attention too much about the box on his head and how that was going on for a while. I did not know about that. But Pac went in to go after Kip Sabian. That was another story. Okay. Everybody feeling what they are about what happened here. I'm not too caught up on it. But it looks like we're going to get Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega together in their respective trios match as we lead up to the trios finals at All Out. And a lot of matches being set up for All Out too. We finally got confirmation that Jungle Boy will take on Christian Cage. Originally, Thunder Rosa was going to take on Tony Storm, but now we're going to get an interim women's title match because of the injury to Thunder Rosa. So women's title will be on the line, and Tony Storm will take on Dr. Britt Baker. Then you add a couple more former champions, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and Hikaru Shida, and Jimmy Hayter. put into the match. That's good. So they got that set up. And so we don't know what the AEW World Title picture will be at All Out if we're going to get a match brought together. But you could very well go to Adam Page and Jon Moxley and go right to that if you wanted to. But maybe they're not going to do it at all. And they also set up 6-man tag, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, Satnam Singh versus FTR, and Wardlow. We got that all set together. 4 matches. There's still 2 more. Is that right? 2 more Dynamites? Yeah, 2 more Dynamites before we get to All Out. They'll get everything else set up with what they want to do. But everybody being up in a huff over CM Punk, yeah, I get what you're coming from. I get it. And it's unfortunate. But this is where things are in the crux, and it's like, okay, this is what happens. CM Punk and this whole storyline, I'm not sure what to think of what the whole confusion is anyway. There's just not a lot being told about what happened, if it was a work or not, and how this is all happening. But we don't know anything about anything. And for everybody to go and speculate as to why the match was short, that's just people being pissed off. And they can't help but be pissed off. And they can't help but go ahead and go after AEW because they don't like some of the way things are done. It's now become very, common for people to go and get pissed off at AEW and now start praising WWE because, the fresher product, the stars are coming back. Now we already hear what Jonah's starting to make his way back. So Bronson Reed will probably be making a potential return back to WWE now, and he'll finally get to go to the main roster as planned, like all of that. It's taking the AEW playbook and just spinning it on its head. What was done from the Chicago United Center show to the Arthur Ashe show, that kind of plan is being done right now with WWE. Now, I'm not saying they're doing it hook, line, and sinker, but it is very familiar. It's very similar. You can't deny that part. So this is what they're doing. And it sucks, but they'll figure it all out. There's a lot of pieces moving along with AEW where, listen, I'm not necessarily being caught up in the fact that why is it we have all these different stars that are not on there enough, and I'm just enjoying the product. I'm not so heavily invested to the point where I got to get pissed off at what's going on. I just enjoy good wrestling. So I'm not necessarily casual because I watch so much wrestling, but I watch a lot of wrestling. I just want it to be good and consistent. And with AEW, their bar is not really set. Like, I haven't put to a point where AEW has a standard, and if the AEW is not reaching this particular standard, it's expectation that the fans have out there. What we're hearing now a lot from are the fans that were the bitter fans that left and abandoned WWE for the constant things that were going on under Vince. And now you're hearing some AEW fans, and maybe it's just some WWE fans that are, channeling as AEW fans, being disgruntled and being upset. Okay. So that's not surprising there. And that's okay. If everybody wants to feel that way and feel discouraged and disgusted and outraged over everything, that's on them to feel that way. It doesn't make much of a difference to me, but that is what they're going to do with themselves. It doesn't matter. And you know what? I'm not going to spend more time on it. Like, I want to spend more time when it comes to what they're building up for All Out. And at the moment, I'm still surprised we only have 4 matches officially announced. And show's 11 days out. Like, we need to get somewhere and move along and get the show all set up for the Memorial Day weekend. We want to go and see that happen. So let's get that somewhere, especially when you have Clash of the Castle also being put up against after All Out. There's going to be a lot of comparisons going on that weekend, which is what the crux of everything that's going to go on. It's no surprise you're going to do that. I'm not surprised by it at all. The meantime, let's get into what actually is the story that's across the board with WWE and their new pillars. And what I mean by that is I feel like they have definitely put their place, their stake into various stars that have been brought back. It's no surprise that we see Triple H bringing back certain stars that he's confident in from their time in the NXT Black and Gold. And at this point, even after the point that they were off the roster, they might have been working in other organizations, but some of them have come in cold without having much in-ring time in front of the big stage of WWE. They were not in AEW. They were not in other major television promotions. So, yeah, there's the part that some of these stars, we haven't seen them in a while, with Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux. Unless you're watching MLW for a short bit. He was there for a short minute. He's done it twice. And the same thing goes for, well, Bayley's been on an injury. And Dakota Kai and Io Sky, we haven't seen in a while. You look at Johnny Gargano has not been around since, what, November, December? And the whole thing with The Way was disbanded after all that was changed with the NXT Black and Gold. And so you're looking at all these particular stars that are here that are brought back. Gunther has been on television. Theory has been on television. Those are two of the stars that were already given the main roster shot. Gunther's very early on into his run on the main roster, and Theory's already had a chance to be Money in the Bank briefcase holder. With still a chance, they could always book him into the title picture. Whatever they want to do with that. But anyways, we're here. And I'm going to continue to thump away at my thought process. Are any of these stars that we see right now going to really make much of a difference when it comes to building up some main event stars? I mean, which ones have the real potential? And I can talk about the fact that maybe there are certain stars in this crop right now that have made it onto the main roster. Is one thing to be said about, were any of them going to be considered if Vince were still around? And then when Triple H comes in, he just wants to put in his people. The people he put a lot of time and invested in them, their characters, and bring them up as such. You know, the Kevin Owens character we see now is very much the NXT version of Kevin Owens, the one that slammed Sami Zayn when he came into the fray over there. And you got that, and then you're still working around the stars that you have. You're not necessarily going to take anybody of those pillars and escalate them to that main event status right away. There's one thing else also is main roster is one thing, but main event marquee, that main event status, which one's going to be able to grab that brass ring? Everybody that's a casual fan and not just the core audience is going to respond. What has happened so far, and I'm going to just say it like this, the core base WWE audience, that if there was something really big that was going to pop on a particular Raw or SmackDown or a pay-per-view, they're now all hands on deck. So to get 2 million viewers on Raw, 2.4 million viewers on SmackDown, that's your core. And so you no longer have the 300 to 500,000 viewers that would normally just drop off. Because remember, when you looked at the ratings before, if you broke down the hours, there were still times at 8 and 9 o'clock, you would see 2 million viewers. So now you're just getting an audience that's going to consistently show up and watch all the way through. But will that consistent feeding of just long matches, good matches, and some promos in between, is that going to be enough to keep people satisfied through Monday Night Football? Is that going to be enough to make all the events really that much more important? I think you're going to get more of the fan base that's going to come out to shows and support. I don't know if that leads to merchandise, but I mean, we're seeing that once Triple H has come in, and with some of the things that we're doing already, that now the fan base is starting to respond for tickets. So they're buying tickets to the shows. They're wanting to go out. The hardcore, diehard WWE fan base, and even the ones that might have been lingering around fringe because of Attitude Era days or the NXT Black and Gold days, they're now back and engaged. So you've done that part. And honestly, that is the easy part. And to get that done in a couple of weeks, yeah. If somebody would have righted the ship and make the mid-card matter, you got that. And there are a lot of people that feel like with NXT, that Black and Gold division, that's what you were going to get. then you would have gotten stars that would have really built up there. My question is, of the ones that you've brought up, who's really going to stand out? I mean, who do you see in that main event marquee that would go up for them in order to become getting over as main event stars? Okay, let's just look at some of the examples we have so far of current stars right now that are being built up, being made important. Bianca Belair is a great example. I mean, she did take on Sasha Banks. She did beat Becky Lynch and beat them both handily after having losses. But either which way, 2 consecutive WrestleManias, Sasha Banks and Belair she beats for the Raw Women's Championship, or the SmackDown Women's Championship, whatever it is. So you got that. That made Bianca Belair solidified. And she's taken everybody else on the roster, and they booked her strong. They kept her winning all the time. Riddle, they kept him alongside Randy Orton for a long time, tag team champions. And ever since, he has been going after other stars, right? He did have his deal now with, currently has his deal with Seth freaking Rollins. And before that, he was going after Roman Reigns. They kept him strong, even though he was not going to beat Roman Reigns. That's okay. But they did that, and Riddle has kept very strong. And they haven't put him on TV a whole lot either to build up that match with Seth Rollins. The fact that he actually moved the match with Riddle and Seth Rollins off of SummerSlam to Clash of the Castle. They've given prestige to that whole setup right there. And if you want to go down the line, we could talk about Damian Priest or Rhea Ripley and talk about how they're going to do so well. But one thing you got to keep in mind too is that the pillars are to be considered now. Triple H is taking players that have been around the NXT brand for several years. And then with that, they were brought in at their prime. Remember, these are not developmental stars. They've already been in their prime, and if they were going to do anything and have any kind of threshold, you could have called them up to the main roster and see what happens. I mean, in the current state, if Triple H would have brought these stars in and had the control of the pen, 2017, 2018, Johnny Gargano, Karrion Kross, you could imagine a number of these stars might have made their way up to that main roster by now, because it would have been at the same level. And maybe by this point, they would have taken on some other stars to build them up to be something bigger. But the disadvantage is that they were taken off TV for a significant amount of time. And then you bring back a Johnny Gargano. Look, everybody wants to talk about the fact that Johnny Gargano, what a response he got. He's like a hero's welcome. And he's where people want to say he's a top star. Listen, he's a decorated multi-time champion across the Indies. No question there, okay? 35 years old. There's a relationship with him and Candice LeRae. Everybody wants to talk about that. And prior to that, yeah, we could talk about his background. He worked in Chikara. He worked in Dragon Gate. He worked in Evolve, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. He's worked in Ring of Honor, and he's worked in TNA. He's made some names for himself, and he was in NXT in 2016, and then did the whole thing with him and Tommaso Ciampa's DIY. We know the whole story. And you never know. They could always go back and do something with that as well. Now, one thing was with Gargano was that his contract had expired December 2021. He was never released, but never re-signed. And now he's back. NXT well-decorated NXT Triple Crown champion. Now you have to go and bring him back in here again and see what you could do with him. And find a guy that's definitely going to stand out, 5'10", 199 pounds. And see if there's a way to move him up into a level that he's going to be such a strong champion. I mean, what's the ceiling for Johnny Gargano? the thing is that anybody that comes up right now that you're going to bring up, you have to ask yourself, are they just going to be brought up because you think maybe they're just good enough to go and become an IC or US champion? Is Promo specifically talked about? He wants to be able to hold all those belts. He wants to be able to have so much to accomplish left. But also, he's 35 years old. You know, when you get towards 40, okay, you got a number of years, but the future of this company, they have to consider that part. And some of the stars they have right now, even though they've not been in front of that main roster for a long time, in front of those main roster eyeballs for years and years, Gunther is up there in age. He's in his mid-30s. Damian Priest is near 40. Rhea Ripley's in her mid-30s. I mean, everybody's in their 30s now that is up, moving up to that main roster. And the thing is, other companies will take pillars and, you know, really build them up while they're in their 20s. When you look at AEW with Sammy Guevara and MJF and Darby Allin, among others. Daniel Garcia, very young talent. But the thing is that with all of that there, in a different company, with a different lineup altogether, without the expectations of 5 decades of WWE, right? Or it should be 4 decades, or WWF. The names that preceded them. You're asking yourself, okay, can Johnny Gargano be at the level of be that rare Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Daniel Bryan type of feel? I don't know. That's a lot of ground to cover, and it's a whole lot to follow. His promo was fine. I mean, it was nice to go and hear, you know, really sympathetic babyface talking about his kid and his wife and all the things he's been blessed to have done in his career. But to me, I also feel like the Theory is going to step up and probably step over Gargano in the promo department. Will those two have a great match, a great feud together? Absolutely. But is Gargano going to step up and be the full accoutrement? Does he have everything that every sports entertainer needs to have? There's some reason why Vince never even decided to bring him. He did bring him up, but that was injury and then out, which that never looks good at all. And down the line, we have to worry about that too. Will there be a point where some of these stars get injured? And then some of the people they're still holding on to, sure, they're beefing up the roster again. And you also need to make sure that some of the stars that you have, while you still have the same main event problem, it's been said, sure, the main event problem's still there. And with all the part-timers, you have to figure out people that are going to be there that are going to be worthy of the full-time exposure. They're going to be as over as those part-timers, because you need to find people to replace those people. And then the other problem you got to deal with is that, are you going to get them to a certain point where they're going to be so big? They're never going to get to that point where, I don't know if we're getting any of these stars where Hollywood will start knocking on their door, which was a factor that we had previously. And that was always the issue that they had, was that ceiling. So, okay, you're going to push these people as far as you can. The machine will do what it does. But are you sure that when you're doing all this, I mean, you can get the ratings up to a certain level, but now you need to grow that audience. Your broadcasters, you gave them something really nice. Listen, you got their numbers back up to a certain level. The demos are back up. Oh, that's nice. But they still want to be number one in their particular demographics in the 18 to 49. You need to hit number one every time, especially when you're a live product. And what they're doing as a live product is safe. They're not necessarily doing anything that's over the top. Like, you are building up matches. You're building up feuds. You're building up matches for upcoming weeks, and not just giving us matches automatic. You still do that. Okay. But part of it is that you have to figure out the plan that's going to best serve. And you got to have more time to build these stars. Listen, Jeremy Borash can go ahead and produce and direct as many vignettes as you want. But if there's not enough, You got to think bigger than NXT. And you got to really lay out some storylines, take from the past. Figure out what you're going to do to really build up these stars. Because there's always something that's added coming from NXT. What you did in NXT was very simplified development, still one-dimensional. You have to build multi-dimensional. Like, there are certain things that's got to be said about. It's the little things for the crowd, like the fact that Theory now has the "Who's Your Daddy" chant stuck on him probably forever because of the Vince role. It would not have happened if Vince were not part of the storyline. Okay, when you don't have him, there's not that. You need to build some strong chants. You need to build some strong characters and some gimmicks and things that will stand out. I mean, in the current phase of the Bayley faction, we haven't gotten a name for this faction. She really doesn't do the ding-dong too much. All the things that were her quirkiness before, she's kept more serious now. But you have to build the entertainment part out. WWE can't just be wrestlers that can cut promos. They have to be able to do more. Some of my fellow podcast wrestling brethren are not going to think that way. That's fine, but that's just how it is. You have to consider that. The sports entertainment side has to be considered. I will keep saying that over and over. You can't just drop a Johnny Gargano and expect he's just going to automatically overnight sensation. No. There's a difference between Johnny Gargano going to any other company, anywhere. Okay? Go to Japan, go to England, go to Mexico, different story. Because it's all work rate, most everywhere else. But WWE is a different beast. And Triple H needs to understand this beast, he has to feed into it. There's too many people that expect him. They need over the top. They need stars that are going to be larger than life. And some of that has to be the size and the strength and the brutality and all that stuff. Are some of these stars that he's brought on up, are they going to be able to bring that part compared to their peers, the people they looked up to back in the day? You got to ask yourself that question. But what I will continue to ask myself, and I will continue to question the decisions that are being made in WWE right now with who they decide are the pillars they want to back up and invest time and effort and resources into in the hopes that they're going to get over. And what I mean by getting over, we can't just expect that if a Johnny Gargano or Karrion Kross, that they make it well on the mid-card, they become an IC or US champion or tag team champion. We need to see some of these stars strive to the world title. They still have to untangle the web that is Roman Reigns and the Usos holding the tag team titles on both brands and Roman Reigns holding the world titles on both brands. They have to figure that out. And look, if they already have Drew McIntyre coming in and taking that spot and becoming the unified champion, if that's what's the case, that he could win both belts at Clash at the Castle. One of the other things that's being talked about as well is a potential draft, which I'll talk about in a minute. But what are they going to do to split those belts? Because I believe Triple H wants to split those belts and make them separate again. But this is the web they put with the bloodline. They have to figure out the right talent that's going to ultimately take those titles off those said teams. When you look at the tag team titles now, you know, you're not looking at any particular tag teams necessarily that we've seen out there over and over and over that's going to take the belts off the Usos. I don't know who you have that goes for that, but the Usos are about to be 1 year as champions, and they've beaten everybody. And there are no new tag teams, I believe, that they have up in the forefront that are going to get built up again to where they can be taken over. I mean, do we want to? They're not going to go with Riddle and Randy Orton. It looks like Riddle is definitely going towards a singles career. And whenever Randy Orton comes back, they'll figure that out down the line. But Randy Orton's not coming back anytime soon. Like the tag team titles is a bigger problem. There is nobody. I mean, you could get somebody to upset the Usos and win. All right, you can do that. But who's going to be credible enough? Who's going to be built up enough to be able to go ahead and be legitimate enough to go ahead and take the belts off? Because I don't know who that's going to be. And also, you're talking about both belts. So, like, the prestige of seeing both belts being taken by one team, they gave the Street Profits a number of chances out there. And by the way, Street Profits have not been on TV, have they? No. I don't think I've seen them out there since Triple H took over. Am I correct? Because we don't know what Street Profits are going to be after this. If they were going to split them up or what. But the original plan looked like they were going to have a split up. I don't know what they're going to be next. New Day? They're still kind of like they've been left out now with the Viking Raiders. And they're definitely entrenched in that. It's not Alpha Academy. Like, there's nobody out there. That's the bigger thing. They have to build, and where Triple H always likes to bring up tag teams, he hasn't answered that question yet. Because we don't need tag teams right now that are ready to go. I mean, he's already having some issues right now with the women's tag team tournament, trying to keep that right. Now you got this defunct, convoluted second chance 4-way match at SmackDown, which they had to figure things out. Toxic Attraction was in there, and they now have to get taken out because Gigi Dolan's injured. And then you're giving 3 teams that lost. You got to take them out along with, and then see who's going to be the winner out of that mess to go up against Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah, because it doesn't matter who you have on that other side. I mean, everything is destined for Bayley's team, Dakota Kai and Io Sky, to win. Like, it's pretty serious for that. And then what you do is you can take the women's tag team titles. That tournament didn't really help much, except for the fact you just build where Kai and Sky win, and then Naomi and Sasha Banks come back. And you take that storyline and run with it. Okay. And then where do you go next with Roman Reigns? So Drew McIntyre ultimately could be the one to finally take down Roman Reigns. There's enough capital in all that he's done in the last 2 years to warrant Drew McIntyre a big pop and a huge celebration with that change. And by the way, the title change overshadowing anything that AEW All Out could do that Labor Day weekend. They could do that over there. And Roman Reigns could take some significant time off, so they're not using up all the dates on this contract, and you just take him away for the next 3 months or so, bring him back for WrestleMania season. You could do that. And the Bloodline could be taken out like that. Roman Reigns could just be taken out. Tribal Chief just takes time off. You could do that. I mean, look, the guy's been out there consistently, even though in the part-time run, but he's been the champion for a long amount. I mean, how many more days do you need to have that guy hold the belt is the question. And so if you go with that route, then you say to yourself, he doesn't need to be champion anymore. Let's just take him off of there and let's go forward with a new champion, right? Let's just go ahead and say, okay, done. Drew takes the belt. Is that going to be Triple H's choice? I can see where Vince decides to make that choice and have Roman take over, but you still have to worry about getting the belt off of Roman. And then, what do you do to split the belts up? Does the draft become the way where the belts have to be split? And so what you do is you find a way to go and say, okay, that Drew is kept either on either brand, and he has to only be left with one belt, and the other belt, because of the draft rules, have to be vacated. Like, I think they could do something like that. I think that would piss people off. But you're not going to have a match where one half of those belts are going to be defended. I don't think they could do that. I think they're going to have some kind of a managerial decision where Adam Pearce or whoever, they strip because of the draft one half of those belts, and then the other half has to be defended on a different brand. And you change that because there's something where Roman Reigns was the only one that was able to go and have the combined belts. And then the babyface gets screwed over. I don't know. I don't know what you do. But they don't have an answer for that yet. And they should. Somewhere down the line. I don't know what that's going to be, though. So overall, what they're doing now, you have some stars that are waiting in the wings that could be brought up to main event level, to be at the level of the world title after Roman Reigns drops that belt. Riddle and Rollins are on the cusp, and their feud continues to go with that. Cody Rhodes will be back at some point next year to also be a part of that. And then you continue to have the likes of Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, and who knows, Drew McIntyre could very well be the title holder after Clash at the Castle. So you got that going for you. And when you have these chance moments where shows are being held in certain big cities and you get a chance to go ahead and say, oh, you know what? Let's troll out somebody that everybody's very familiar with. So let's get Trish Stratus while we're in Toronto. They did that. They give Edge and Damian Priest that featured match in the main event on Raw, which was great. And Edge getting the win, by the way, and announcing he will probably retire 1 year from now, hopefully in Toronto. And then Kai and Sky beat Bliss and Asuka in a semifinal match and takes care of that. So like we said, we already know what's all set right now with Kai and Sky odds-on favorite to win the women's tag team titles. And it's supposed to be what? Yeah, I guess it's being done at Clash of the Castle, or is it going to be done on TV? I forget. Actually, no, we can't do it because we already had that six-woman tag. So they're not going to have that there. They're going to do it on, I think it's supposed to be on SmackDown, correct? I think that's when the finals are supposed to be, before Clash of the Castle. And then we look at what else they're doing. Okay. Kevin Owens stays strong here, wins over Chad Gable. Bayley gets her first match. They probably didn't need to put her back on TV, back in the ring yet. They should have waited until Clash of the Castle, maybe, or give her a different match or something. But they decided to go and give Aaliyah, the hometown favorite, a chance to be in there. She's featured in the women's tag team tournament. Okay, they're giving us a few reasons why she's out there, but didn't help. Everybody's really panned her performance anyway. NXT 2.0 had a nice little performance. Their ratings are still pretty good. Almost 700,000 viewers again. And the Dexter Lumis story, they need continuity. So he kidnaps The Miz. We hear nothing about updates about if The Miz was removed out of the arena or anything. And then we see Dexter Lumis come out to see Indy Hartwell on NXT, only to be arrested, with no explanation whatsoever, going back to what he did with The Miz. We need some answer to that. It'd be nice to have. They take quite a bit of time to bring back Dexter Lumis for this, by the way. By the way, he can't be a pillar because Dexter Lumis is 38 years old. And then we saw Gargano in Theory, the setup for that, which, look, just that alone sounds nice. It sounds like this should have been an NXT feud because of the whole deal with the way, but it doesn't matter now because of the changes with NXT. It's not the black and gold. So whatever was on the black and gold brand continues here. And that's what they wanted to do. Okay. So people were saying he got a strong reaction. I guess he did. But you know what? In Toronto, that'd be pretty easy to do. I mean, you put him in Cleveland, sure. Like if you brought Johnny Gargano in most of the cities that they would run, I don't know if you would get that level of response. They obviously put him in a place where he was going to be that fan base was going to be very loud and vocal. So Gargano was going to come off like a star coming into this debut, this return back, which is good for them. Okay. And having Gargano and Theory together is a good thing to do. You know what I mean? And taking him off with Dolph Ziggler, that's fine. So Gargano and Theory, that will help out. Theory, I believe, needs to go over. While he even is the Money in the Bank briefcase holder, I don't know who you put ahead, but I think it had to be Theory. I just don't know what you do with Gargano that's not with Tommaso Ciampa. That's really going to stand out. he's undersized. Well, sure, that's a different story than NXT, but the matches that you're going to have, sure, you're going to have work rate with Johnny Gargano, but what people do you see him feasibly going over on a regular basis to become a main event star? Let's just point that out. If he goes to the mid card, are you going to see him run through the likes of Riddle or Seth freaking Rollins or AJ Styles or Bobby Lashley or, do you see any of that? Do you expect, if he takes on Edge, if he takes on Damian Priest and Judgment Day, if he takes on, pick him. Who are the names he's going to solidly beat handily and elevate himself up the card? You got to ask yourself that question. That it's believable. And we're not talking about the NXT Black and Gold crowd that was watching in the Capitol Wrestling Center or Full Sail. This is a different audience. This is much more, you have to target more than the core fan base. You got the 2 million, 2.5 million viewers on both of those shows. You got 700,000 nearly for NXT. Look, things couldn't have gotten themselves stabilized better for Triple H. Let's just say it like that. Even though the NXT brand is different than what he had it before, the NXT 2.0 project so far is performing okay. They are pulling in good numbers. And the likes that Grayson Waller and Andre Chase and Tiffany Stratton and Lash Legend and Briggs and Jensen and Diamond Mine and Pretty Deadly and all these NXT UK people invading and Braun Breaker and Cameron Grimes. Hey, the hodgepodge works. I'm watching it every week. I'm not bored by it. I didn't like the Grayson Waller effect. I thought it was too long, but otherwise, the show works for what I like. And like I said, there's a few names on that main roster or that are main roster bound at some point. There's just not much more for Braun Breaker to do, nor Mandy Rose. They've run through the tables on just about everybody that was up there in the first place. Okay, I should bring Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade, and should bring them up as well. It's quirky, it's campy, but that's NXT 2.0. It's fine. It's a different kind of show. And when I continue to look across and I say, okay, we know Braun Breaker and Mandy Rose are destined to main roster. It's just inevitable. And you can do that at some point. Not right now. Those two are basically post WrestleMania debuts if you're going to do that. Let's just say this right now. We know that the Raw after WrestleMania will be pretty epic, most likely, because Triple H is going to probably bring back the tradition of really trying to create some surprises at the Raw after WrestleMania. And that's where you see two stars like that make their way up there. But what do you do with them between now and April? All right. So there's that part. The Judgment Day. Now, you give Edge the win over Judgment Day in this feud over Damian Priest. And there you go. And now, meanwhile, Finn Balor gets a win over Dolph Ziggler. So they have the Judgment Day half and half on what they're doing right now in dominating. But the match had really good stuff going on. Beth Phoenix coming out post-match. Who knows if she's going to deal with Rhea Ripley down the line, if that has to be something considered. But at the moment, Judgment Day looks okay. I'm sure Edge is doing a good job of trying to go ahead and continue to make that particular storyline work. I don't know what you do with them next, but that was fine. And then we look at SmackDown, what they've been doing. Okay. They arrested Ronda Rousey. And we had that quarterfinal match with Toxic Attraction, which the match is null now that they won because you had a lot of things going on with that. Hit Row and Maximum Male Models are a featured feud. Okay. I don't know how much people are really caring about this, but it's not a bad thing to have happen, to go and create this here. But I think people are kind of enjoying this here for what it is. It's just a TV feud, and it's not something we're going to start with Clash at the Castle with. Sheamus wins the number one contenders match for the Intercontinental title, so him and Gunther should be an interesting match they put together. That's just a straight up, strong style European world of sport type match. Like, that's the kind of match we should be getting over at Clash at the Castle. And Sheamus should be red-chested and going crazy because Gunther's going to probably slap him like crazy. And that'll work. I think it's nice to go and see where Sheamus is going to get a chance in this European crowd. He's, this will be good. For what they're going to do, I think they got a good idea here. And, they aren't trying to go that European component with Drew in the main event. And then you have here Sheamus and Gunther to go on in that other match. You've kept Liv Morgan strong, and even when she was hurt because of the whole Shayna Baszler storyline, that story's working pretty good too. And Shayna Baszler, post-match attack on Morgan, and Shayna not wanting to go and break her arm yet because she wants to be able to win the belt first, and she needs to be able to go and compete. So, Shayna Baszler easily heated back up. And we always kind of had an idea. Let me tell you, if there are two people, men and women, that Triple H has brought up and has focused on in his NXT run on the black and gold, Shayna Baszler should absolutely be elevated. And I would love to see if she wins the title coming up at the Clash. That'd be great. And as for Karrion Kross, you could elevate him pretty quickly up. I don't think they could possibly do something where Roman Reigns and Karrion Kross for the undisputed WWE championships could happen. I don't think they could do that. I don't think anybody would really believe Karrion Kross that quickly to move that far, that quickly, that fast. I don't see it. So I don't know what to think right there. But I think there's something about that they have some people moving along that's working really well. I mean, the mid card is entertaining. We're not getting a lot of matches that really suck. And that just makes for good TV product. But they're going to continue to do that TV product like that. And Triple H can make sure to avoid the staleness that could possibly come from all that. But then what do you do next after all that? That's the thing I got to think about. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Got 10 more minutes. Let's go and just wrap through a couple of different things because there's so much to talk about still. NWA is coming up this weekend. I got to talk about that. So a few things I want to bring up real quick. The staff and announcers are very happy with recent changes. A fun environment backstage. That's a story that's been put out. I was going to bring that up. Plans for the draft. WWE draft was expected to be done after Clash at the Castle they were talking about originally, but let me talk about what the story was said from WrestlingNews.co. Fightful reporting several Raw wrestlers were scheduled for the first SmackDown following Clash at the Castle. SmackDown talent was slated to appear on the September 5th edition of Raw, and the draft could shortly come after. Well, Fightful Select reported that the belief among the wrestlers that those plans are no longer a slam dunk. There are still Raw stars that have been unbooked for the SmackDown episode following Clash at the Castle, and many have been told the draft was not taking place that week, but a significant number of crossover talent were not involved. And USA Network sources told talent the draft isn't happening in the immediate future, and outright stated that after WrestleMania is a likelier landing spot. And WWE has yet to announce anything for the draft. So the draft could also be something that's going to be used as a catalyst to post-WrestleMania to shake things up, which is not a bad idea. Let things kind of fester where they do before you start switching people around. You're already making debuts. You're already moving people onto the roster right now. The freshness is there. Just get to what you got to go through April and take care of that. Now, one of the stories that came out when it comes to NWA 74, which is being held this Saturday and Sunday, I plan to go ahead and do post shows on that right here, WrestlingIsReal.com. I don't know if I'm going to do night 1 and night 2 to get, I mean, if we're going to do them separate, I'll figure it out. Just stay tuned to WrestlingIsReal.com and I'll let you know if I'm going to decide to do that or not. But there's a lot of people that are complaining right now because of the fact that Nick Aldis will not be, who was originally scheduled to take on Trevor Murdoch for the NWA World's Heavyweight title, and his replacement is the television champion Tyrus. Well, I forget how long Tyrus has held the belt. But Tyrus is also one of the most recognizable names on the NWA roster anyway. He's been there for a long time. And Billy Corgan spoke with Chris Van Vliet and standing behind Tyrus. And people are kind of really going after what's going on here. So here's what's going on here. He tells Chris Van Vliet that he finds Tyrus valuable, whereas others may not. Quote, people try to quantify Tyrus' talent. How can you? He appears on TV 3 times a week in front of over 2 million people. He's a best-selling author, sold out a comedy show the right night before NWA 74. People want to talk about him as a professional wrestler, which is a great professional wrestler in my opinion. But if you leave out all the other things that Tyrus is, you leave out all the other things that Matt Cardona is. Look at what Mickie James brand did for the Empower pay-per-view last year. WWE completely underestimated the Mickie James brand. Mickie James brought her brand to the NWA, ran a successful pay-per-view off her brand. That's kind of what I'm talking about. So people got kind of commented about that. And I was like, okay, I don't have an issue with Tyrus. I've been watching NWA long enough. I understand why Tyrus would be considered a contender for the NWA World's Heavyweight title. Not Pope, because he already took on Trevor Murdoch. And that was already kind of squashed up. Trevor Murdoch turning. And other than that, I mean, the only thing they haven't done is they haven't had a lot of time where Trevor Murdoch has confronted Tyrus leading up to the world title match. That's what we haven't had yet. But the match is there. And night one will already have pre-show match, Country Gentlemen, Anthony Andrews, AJ Kazana versus Gold Rush, Bully Ray versus Mike Knox in a tables match. Let's just do predictions real quick. I'll take the Country Gentlemen. I'll take Mike Knox over Bully Ray. Oh, man, tough match. Kamille versus Taya Valkyrie for the NWA Women's World title. I'm going to take... Well, it will be really weird to see Taya Valkyrie hold on to so much gold. If I think she's ran into the reign as champion again. She's in the MLW Featherweight champion. I don't know if she's going to be holding the brand here. I think Kamille wins. Homicide versus Kerry Morton. I think Kerry Morton wins the junior heavyweight title. The Burke Invitational. Well, we already know that KiLynn King already was featured over on... was already featured on AEW against Britt Baker and lost. Let's see. Tootie, Lynn, KiLynn King, Samantha, Starr, Missa, Kate, Madi, Angelina Love, Jennacide, Natalia, Markova. If I had to pick, you know, it will be either Markova or Angelina Love. I'm going to take Natalia Markova to go up against Kamille night 2. Matt Cardona will take on a hand-picked opponent. We have the Beelzebub's Bedlam match. So I can't pick Matt Cardona's opponent or pick the winner of that match. And so you have Miserably Faithful versus Ill Begotten, Jedias Gags the Gimp, Sal the Pal, Alex Taylor, Jeremiah Punklet, and Rush Freeman. And there was a whole change up in the Ill Begotten. I forgot about that. What was going on right there? So there's a whole lot of ruckus with the Ill Begotten, which I think that's going to foster into that match. So Miserably Faithful I'll take for the win. EC3 versus Mims, I'll take Mims. The tag team titles, Commonwealth Connection versus La Rebellion in a rematch. I'll take La Rebellion to win back the belts. Luke Hawx versus VSK, which I see VSK now has joined the Trustbusters. He's now, what were they calling him? Jeeves SK, that's right, the Butler, right. So I'll take Luke Hawx on the win for that. I'm guessing VSK is on the way out of NWA to work AEW. Pope versus Rodney Mack, I'll take Rodney Mack for the win. Don't really care for that match too much, but let's see what they do. Like I said, I'll take Kamille versus Natalia Markova, and I'll take Kamille to win the Women's World title. she'll win both nights. I really don't think they have anybody really set to take the belt off of her. I don't think there's anybody set for that yet. 10-man battle royal for the U.S. Tag Team titles to recrown once again U.S. Tag Team titles. Gold Rush versus Jordan Clearwater and Marche Rocket. Miserably Faithful, The Now, Hale Collins and Vic Delicious, Ill Begotten, Fixers, Wrecking Ball, Legursky, G. Bradley, Country Gentlemen, Hawks, Airy, Luke and PG Hawks, and Team Ambition, Mike Outlaw and Camaro Jackson. And I'm going to take the Fixers on the win for that. If it's not them, it's probably the Gold Rush, but I'm going to take the Fixers. Women's Tag Team title, Street Fight, Pretty Empowered versus the Hex. And I think Ella Envy and Kenzie Page are going to have the falling out there, and the Hex will retain the belts. We also have the MLW National Openweight Championship in a featured match. Davey Richards, the champion, versus Thrillbilly Salas. I'll take Davey Richards. Mercurio versus Magic Jake Dumas. I'll take Magic Jake, with his assistant messing things up for Mercurio. Tom Latimer versus Judias. I'll take Latimer. Colby Corino versus Carice Coleman. I'll take Colby Corino. And for the world title, I will take Trevor Murdoch over Tyrus. So for everybody that's complaining about the fact that Tyrus is going to be in this match, listen, next best alternative. And by the way, Nick Aldis will have an open forum. He will start off night one at NWA 74. He will be in the ring with a mic. Don't know what he's going to say. But whatever's going to happen, they're going to lay it out in the ring and talk about it. It sucks that Nick Aldis is not part of the show. Maybe they'll do something the next day where Trevor Murdoch and Nick Aldis will have a match after all, or something will happen. I don't know. But Trevor Murdoch is coming home. He's going to go back to the chase where he won the belt last year, and he's going to retain the title. Let's just put it like that. Because if anybody's going to take the belt off of him, it's Nick Aldis. They don't have anybody else set to be world champion yet. I don't think Bill Corgan has really thought about who he has in line that could be the predecessors to either world title. I don't think he has that in mind yet. Clash of the Castle so far, we already have the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Roman Reigns defending against Drew McIntyre. SmackDown Women's title, Liv Morgan versus Shayna Baszler. Seth freaking Rollins versus Riddle. And Bayley, Dakota Kai, Io Sky versus Alexa Bliss, Asuka, and Bianca Belair, among others. That's good stuff. I like it all. And we'll leave it there. I'm going to keep it a little bit short, just because I got to get myself to bed. I got to go and get up and drive my brother to the airport, Fort Lauderdale, at 6 in the morning. That's fun. So I got to go and turn in. Let me get this pushed up and published. Thank you for listening in. As you always do, the website is WrestlingIsReal.com. Make sure to check it out. That's where all the links are, all my socials, all the past episodes. It's all there for you. And by the way, if you haven't checked out my other companion show, Depraved and Debaucherous, I talk about society, culture, dating, relationships, all that good stuff. I've picked out a new website for it. It's now ddradio.live. ddradio.live. That's the new website for Depraved and Debaucherous. And also my other companion show, Broadcasters Podcast. That's all about the media, commentary, and I forget what I'm going to talk about this week. I know I'm going to talk about iHeartRadio and their new iHeartLand. They've created their own musical universe on Fortnite for the metaverse. They got that going on. There's stuff about Batgirl now being done in a funeral ceremony where they're going to have the movie available for cast and crew to watch the completed project before they shelve it and put it in the vault and never to show it anywhere else again. There's that, and there's some other stuff that's going to be brought up. But anyway, I should do previews of those shows on this program. I just haven't. But anyways, while I have the extra minute, Broadcasters Podcast, I pushed it out every Thursday at night going into Friday. So Friday mornings, you can find it at broadcasterspodcast.com or wherever you find podcasts. And you can find the Parade of the Debaucherous. I put it out 3 times a week. Mini episodes on Mondays and Fridays and a full-length episode on Wednesdays, 30 minutes long. And that's ddradio.live, where you can find that show. And of course, I'm going to come back this weekend for NWA 74. And if things work out right, I'll see if I'm going to do night 1 and night 2. I will do post shows for both because they're doing it that way. And that'll work out. That'll be fun. Interesting, they're not going to do an Empowered show this year, but they got quite a few women's matches on there, which is good. That'll work out. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening in. Come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.